Good morning, students. Welcome back to your computer lecture. I request all the students to kindly remove their workbook and a pencil. And students, in this video, I will cover two parts, which is similar components of the central processing unit and what are the different storage devices. The components of central processing unit is from chapter number 1. So I request all the students to kindly open up page number 6, components of the central processing unit. Let us read. The CPU is known as the brain of the computer. It manages all the operations of a computer system. It also accepts instructions to process data and provide the required output. The CPU is the most important part of the computer. The primary essential components of a CPU include the control unit, arithmetic and logic unit, and memory unit. Okay. So as we are learning the components of central processing unit is the full form for CPU, which is also known as the brain of the computer. Why the brain of the computer? Because it controls, manages the data or the instruction that we input, and it gives us the desired output for us. Hence, it is the most important part of the computer. Now, CPU is further divided into different components, which includes control unit, arithmetic and logic unit, and memory unit. Let's take a close look at this picture. So it's controlling the input and it processes the information, it stores the information and then gives us the desired output. So let's try to understand further what are the different components of the central processing unit or the CPU. Before we go ahead further, students, I want you all to take a look at this picture. This is an example of a motherboard on which all the various devices gets connected. Now, the center part which you see in the silver is the CPU. How a CPU looks? CPU is a small chipset, or it's a small chip which is attached on the motherboard. And what we look at this is known as the CPU cabinet, which has all the connectors. So don't confuse yourself. CPU is a central processing unit. It's like a small chip, and the black box that you see is known as the CPU tower or the CPU cabinet. So let's read further. The control unit. The control unit is a hardware component of the CPU. It manages the activities of various parts attached to the computer, such as monitor, mouse, and scanner. The main task of the control unit is to handle various operations. It provides instructions to the memory, arithmetic and logic unit, and input-output devices. It manages the steps involved in processing data. Alright students, so control unit is nothing but it's controlling the entire process of the computer. It controls the various parts connected to the computer like the monitor, mouse, scanner. We can relate this with a human brain as well. As we know, a human body comprises of various parts like hands, legs, nose, head, mouth, lips, ear, right? The movements for all these body parts are controlled by the brain. The brain sends and receives information or sends signals for the various parts of the body to perform it accordingly. Similarly, in computers, the control unit is controlling all the parts of the computer, such as the monitor, mouse, scanner, keyboard, etc. And the main task or the main purpose of control unit is to handle various operations. Like it will provide instructions to the memory, or depending upon the instructions, it will pass on the message or the signal to the different parts or the components, like input output devices or arithmetic or logic unit. So it overall controls the processing of the various parts of the computer and various devices. This is how a CPU looks. So it is controlling all the parts of the computer. Let's take a look at the arithmetic and logic unit. This component performs various arithmetic and logical operations such as addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and comparison. So ALU, which is the short form for arithmetic and logic unit, ALU, it is responsible for the calculation parts, the computing part, like addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, comparison, and so on and so forth. So ALU is responsible, or it's a component which is handling or taking care of the calculations part of the computer. See here, the CPU is divided into various components, of which the ALU is where the arithmetic and logic operations are carried out on the data. Let's take a look at the memory unit. What is memory unit? The memory unit is used to store data. There are different types of storage units in which data can be stored. These are classified as primary storage and secondary storage. Alright students, the name as it suggests or as it says, memory unit, it is something to do about the memory. The memory is used or required to store data. Right? In cell phones also we have internal storage, then external storage. Similarly, in computers also, the memory unit is classified into two types: primary storage and secondary storage. So let's see what are primary memory. Primary memory is the memory that is directly accessed by the processor. The primary memory stores the current data that is being processed. The different types of primary memory are random access memory and read-only memory. So primary memory consists of two types: random access memory, which is known as RAM, and read-only memory, which is known as ROM. Why primary? Because this memory is directly accessed by the CPU. It's attached on the motherboard. The processor can directly access this memory because it is directly connected on the motherboard. What are secondary memory? Secondary memory is the memory that cannot be directly accessed by the processor. It is non-volatile, which means that the data is not lost when the system is turned off. It is slow and cheaper as compared to the primary memory. The different types of secondary memory storing hardware includes hard disk, compact disk, and pen drives. Alright students, secondary memory is something which cannot be directly accessed by the processor, the central processing unit or the control unit. These memories are non-volatile. Non-volatile means which cannot be erased easily. Here it says, which means the data is not lost when the system is turned off. Now, in primary memory, we have RAM, random access memory. As the name says, random. So, this memory is volatile. What it means is, this memory is utilized only till the time the application or a particular program is open. For example, when you're using computer, you open Microsoft Word. So the amount of memory that is required for the Microsoft Word application to run is utilized by the RAM. Even in cell phone, students, you may have seen the specifications: 6 GB RAM, 8 GB RAM, 12 GB RAM, 4 GB RAM, right? So these are volatile memory. By volatile, I mean to say, whenever you open any application or you're doing some work, the memory which gets utilized for that particular application is utilized by RAM. As soon as you close that application, the memory is lost and it becomes back. It is available back for your use. ROM is something read-only, which you cannot do anything. It's just for read-only purpose. And secondary memory is something which we can store and erase data as per our requirement. Secondary storage includes hard disk, compact disk, CDs, pen drives. The data on these devices stay as far as we want. Take a look. The types of computer memory: primary memory, RAM and ROM. Secondary memory includes punching device, magnetic tape, floppy disk, optical disk, hard drive, flash disk. This is just an example to illustrate. We'll proceed further with the activity type, which says identify the input, process and output in the following example. I'm sure, students, by looking at the picture, you are able to identify what part of or what function the three diagrams are for. So write the first one as it's in the oven, it's in the machine, inside something happening. That's process. The baked product that you see, the second picture is the output, and the third is the input in the form of the batter or the dough. If you take a look on the next page, you also have one example or one more example, which is making a tea or a coffee. We all can relate to this example. Some students may prefer to have tea, some students prefer to have milk, some prefers to have coffee, right? So we all know the process of making tea or coffee. If not, then I'm sure your mother will help you in this. You may have seen your mother in the kitchen making tea or coffee, right? Three processes again: input, process and the output. So the first one, in the form of input, the coffee powder or the tea powder, sugar and milk are poured into a vessel. Now some may just boil the water, tea and the tea powder and the sugar, and then we pour milk. Some may mix all the ingredients together and then prepare it accordingly. Depending upon the flavor and the taste, we prepare it. The idea is to understand the process involved, right? In the second step in the process, what we are doing, the vessel is then placed on a stove. The ingredients are brought to a boil with the help of stove's heat. So with the help of heat, we are boiling these ingredients. and after this processing, the coffee or the tea is ready to be served, which is the output. Right, so try relating these examples in computer terminology, that there's some input happening. For that inputted data, there's some processing happening, the machine level language, and then again, as in the form of output, we get the data. So this is all about the working of a computer, like different parts and components involved in the working of a computer. Continuing on the same line, central processing unit, we will continue further. However, as we finished chapter 1, I would want you to understand the exercise part, students. If you take a look at your exercise part, here is the answer. I will send this answer to you in your notes. However, while we are doing the video, I just want you to understand this important instruction. As going forward, I will send the answers in the form of this image. All you have to do is take a look at this picture and accordingly write down the answers. Like the first A, the practice time, it's the process output and input which we just saw. Here, this is how you will write. Then followed by your A is fill in the blanks. So the first one, a computer is a dash device. You will write electronic. So this is how you will complete your notes going forward. So I believe we are clear with the instructions as to how we need to complete our notes. Now students, moving further in continuation with